Welcome to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. I'm your host, Casey Garrett, and together we'll be discovering and learning from inspiring voices of healers, medicine keepers, and visionaries. Every episode, we'll explore the world of health, vibrant wellness, and natural medicine for a new era of human society. Welcome to today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited today to be with the team and founder of the Microdosing Institute. So the Microdosing Institute has been around since 2016, offering microdosing education, guidance, community. It's a beautiful facilitation training program as well. And I'm really excited to dive in with these beautiful people today and talk all about the subject of microdosing education. We know that the field has been growing rapidly. It's almost unrecognizable from 5 years ago when I started. And I'm really excited to get the insight from these three about what they have seen, what they're witnessing, and kind of the future of the field. So welcome. Please welcome Hein Pijnnaken, Maria Badila, and Jennifer Rotermund. So I'm going to start off reading their bios for you so you know who we're talking to. And then we'll dive into a deep conversation around microdosing education. So Jennifer Rotermund founded Gaia and Theos Education and Coaching Services in 2020. She has a degree in psychology with an emphasis in behavioral neuroscience. She's a psychedelic integration coach, a cannabis health and wellness coach, and a sacred ceremonialist. She's also a microdosing facilitator and serves as the lead facilitator at the Microdosing Institute. She is also currently in the process of launching the Psychedelic Spiritual Center, Sacrament, with a team of facilitators from her region in the Pacific Northwest. Her passion lives in the integration of psychedelic experiences and the potential of these sacred medicines to reunite someone with a sense of safety and security within their body and functional nervous system. Through embodiment techniques, compassionate listening, shamanic mentoring practices, and restoring a person's connection with the earth, she guides people along the path of coming home to their sovereign self, remembering their divine contract with themselves and this beautiful earth body we call home. Maria Badila is born in Romania under the communist era, and her journey has been one of resilience, transformation, and rediscovery. By 27, she held 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's in psychology, along with 5 years of experience teaching children with autism and mental disabilities. A personal loss propelled her to Canada, where she began a profound journey of healing and self-reclamation, guided by introspection and the transformative power of psychedelics. As the creator of Odin, the first systematic microdosing journal, and the founder of the Microdosing Stories podcast, Anna amplifies global voices to normalize conversations around healing and transformation through microdosing. Anna's mission is to inspire others to shed societal conditioning, align with their true essence, and live their dreams. She believes healing is about rediscovering joy, creativity, and freedom, living in awe of the miracle that is life. Hein Pijnnaken is the founder of the Microdosing Institute and a transformational coach and microdosing educator and coach. While growing up in the Netherlands, one of the most psychedelic-friendly countries in the world, he became familiar with psychedelics when he was 17 and has used them as transformative tools ever since. Today, he has over 33 years of experiencing guiding psychedelic sessions and has immersed himself both theoretically and practically in the topic of microdosing since 2016. He strongly believes microdosing is an incredible tool for self-development, especially in combination with effective coaching. Hein is also the co-founder of Microdosing.nl, the first online microdosing shop in the EU and the official partner of the platform. Microdose.nl supports and sponsors all of their research projects and events. Welcome, you three. Thank you so much for being here today. So good to have you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Welcome. So, Hein, let's start off with you. So one of the things that I've been witnessing is so many more people are becoming aware of microdosing. I've heard of this thing, and sourcing is becoming way more accessible. So the question I get is, why do I need a guide? Like, why do I need a program? Why do I need a community? Why can't this be something I just do on my own? So fundamentally, I'd love you to open up by, you've been at this for such a long time. what makes education and coaching such a game changer when it comes to microdosing practice?
I like to say that you don't need coaching if you have the tools for yourself to be your therapist yourself and explore. And that's so, and like everybody needs education. When you start microdosing, please do your research before starting. Because that is key in that sense. At the same time, community is key. So also doing it together, find the others, like-minded people to share your thoughts and your concerns and your questions with is very important. And then that there are a lot of people that sometimes can use the help of a coach or a therapist that knows their way into psychedelic assisted therapy or whatever. So yeah, and that is when do you need it? That is, if you want to do it in a group, that's nice. If you want to have a one-on-one coaching tailored to your personal situation, that is why people reach out to us a lot of time. And I think that we developed a 6-week program where we guide people through their microdosing journey in a group. And the strength of that is that microdosing is almost sort of, it really amplified or emphasized that it's not the goal in its own. It's more a tool and a support, but the program on itself and doing it together, like group therapy, sort of circling and sharing your experience is, I think, most valuable. Journaling and be guided, and that is why it's so valuable. I think it would also be nice to do this program sometimes without microdosing and find out if it's still valuable, sort of, because people take it for certain reasons. And these reasons are mostly like, like for personal development or breaking patterns or whatever. So it goes much deeper than only the practice of microdosing. And the practice of microdosing, let's be honest, is not rocket science or so. And that is why we have a website where we share for free all the basics that's needed to start with microdosing. But yeah, if you want to dive a little bit deeper and take the most out of your microdosing journey, then a guide or a coach or a program can really be of support. And yeah.
100%. Yep. Thank you so much. Anna, in conversation recently, I heard you compare microdosing practice to karate. And I loved that so much. It's hard to convey to people that are just starting out, especially people coming recently who are equating microdosing with a medication, right? And it's much more of a practice and a ritual and a lifestyle practice. So can you share that metaphor that you made and explain it a little bit more deeply for the listeners?
Oh my God, I even forgot I mentioned that, but so I tried a couple of classes and I realized that this is a new skill that I'm learning, right? And so I loved, like, that's when in my mind it clicked. And so I love comparing microdosing to karate or any other skill that you're learning, because it highlights how microdosing is something that shouldn't be used just as medication, right? Like, we look at microdosing as just another supplement or another pill we take, but microdosing, it's so much more than that. It's an active process, right? Like, think of it like learning karate, right? You don't just like put on the uniform and mimic some movements. You have to be consistent with the practice. You have to pay attention. You have to learn over time. And so similarly, microdosing requires the same level of engagement. It's not just about taking the dose. It's not just about, following a protocol, but it's about observing, reflecting, and integrating. And so in this process, you attune to yourself and you attune to the subtle shifts that happen within you. And you become more empowered and more confident in yourself, and you also switch your mindset from, fix me to grow me. And so microdosing is about growth, it's about attunement, it's about expanding, similarly to learning a new skill like karate. And then I also think that there is a learning curve, right? When you microdose, at first you feel unsure. You have questions like, am I doing this right? Or is this working for me? Like a lot of clients ask me that. But with time and practice, you start noticing what works for you and how it works for you. And then you move away from following a protocol to more intentional microdosing. So that's why I love comparing it to karate or learning any other skill, basically.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jennifer, one of the things we have seen over time is so many people, sometimes intentionally, often unintentionally, come to microdosing practice and then they're like, I want to do this. Like I have been so supported by this practice. I want to share it with others from all different backgrounds. Some people are in the healing and wellness worlds to begin with. Other people come in and they're management consultants or they're comedians. And then 6 weeks later, they're like, I'm really called to share this work. So as the lead facilitator for the Microdosing Institute training program, I'd love for you to share some of the attributes, backgrounds, educations that would really support a practice if you want to become a microdosing practitioner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It is a really exciting time in this field, and I know people are regularly inspired by it. But I feel like it's a particularly rare time in this field that a lot of fields go through, and if you can capture it in this moment, it's pretty exciting because this is a time in this field, especially with microdosing facilitation, where you can actually get some basic solid training fairly quickly and have a career from it, right? And I imagine that will evolve and change with this field like everything else. But it's a really special time. And so it's very exciting for the microdosing facilitator program. And maybe also particularly exciting because you can roll microdosing or work or weave microdosing into just about any field, like you suggested. It really does like blend with just about anything else if you're wanting to blend it into something, a practice you already have, a career you already have. But it also stands alone. So if someone's looking to start newly, to change their career, you don't necessarily need any experience in it other than microdosing yourself and then learning this foundational background and education, and you can have a whole new career. And so when I think about a microdosing facilitator, I think about a few elements, that really makes for a good facilitator. I think about really knowing yourself and bringing your whole self to the practice. Your own practice of microdosing, even if it's minimal, even if you're new to it, but also your whole life experience, whatever your background is and whatever your passions are, right? And because this is what's going to shape you as a facilitator, right? And people are going to find you and the unique skills that you bring from your life, and they're going to, the right clients for you will find that, connect with you in that way. And so who are you and what do you bring, first of all? And really honing that. And then some basic training, which of course we do a lot with in our program, on being able to meet the client where they are as a whole person, being able to sit down in any session with a client or a group of clients and incorporate the whole person and meet them wherever they are in that moment, because they'll be arriving in all different places. And so there are some basic ways of understanding how to do that, right? And then there's the microdosing itself, like as a technology. And this is something we talk about in the course. Like it is not just like knowing, okay, here's how you microdose, right? But like it's a whole, like I think of it as almost a whole other clinician in the room with you, a whole other coach or ally, you know, the medicine, but also the technique itself, which I think we'll speak to even more in this conversation later. It adds this whole other unique and special dynamic to facilitation in general. And so that's what I think of when I think of a really good microdosing facilitator.
I love that and resonate with that so much. We've done now, I think, 29 immersion programs, similarly 6-week framework. And the medicine is a huge part of it. The medicine dictates and shapes each and every group uniquely and speaks to people uniquely in each group. So I love that you touched on that, because it is, one of the foundational people presences in the group is the medicine itself. Yeah, absolutely. Hein, so I wanted to talk, you've been doing this since 2016 professionally with your platform. The field has changed so much in such a short amount of time. And so I would love to hear your reflections on what changes you have witnessed from the time you began until now, and also anything you're really, really excited about, or also anything that's kind of concerning to you in the field at this point.
Okay, yeah, we started off building the website, building community. So we started off as a community platform. I wanted to bring people together. That's something I don't have a certificate in, but I know well how to do that. And I wanted to basically know if it would be preventive medicine for people with cluster headaches, because high doses of psilocybin helps them with the cluster headaches. So I wanted to build a community platform and find out if that is the case, because I'm not a researcher. So I like to call myself an independent researcher, but what I do is build a bridge to the researchers. And with our community platform, we do the search by gathering anecdotal stories inspired by the work of Jim Fadiman, who has been our friend and mentor since 2016. And with these anecdotal stories, we do the search, and then we find a rough diamond, and then we say, hey, people with ADHD are microdosing in our community. Can you write a study around it? So that is how it started, and it was moving to building programs, so gathering all this information and map why people are microdosing, what the pros and cons are, what the risks are. So yeah, that we and I noticed that it was would be great to use for my a coaching practice, and so we moved forward to coaching people, and that was in 2017, and slowly you saw, like, we were sort of ahead of the curve. We were exactly at the same time as the third wave launched their platform, and we slowly moved towards building programs and guiding people through their microdosing journey. And then you slowly start to see in 2020, I believe, more companies were emerging. So especially in the Europe, I founded one of the first microdose shops back in 2018, especially focused on and specialized in microdosing products. There were a lot of smart shops already in Netherlands and Europe, but they were only focusing on like high doses. Then slowly you saw the shift of companies that thought, hey, I can sell this as a candy, and sell this as this is the solution to your problem. If you are depressed, please take this, and then your problems will be going away. And that is where my concern starts. And although I have two hats on, like I have this education community and research platform, but I also have a shop where I sell these products. But that was to cover the cost of my mission, but also to give our community sort of reliable, trustworthy, honest priced products without being people in wholesale. So what I did is trying to figure out the story behind these products. So there's a truffle grower in Holland. He's 82 years old. He has been growing these truffles for 32 years old, 32 years. And so, yeah, that story and why he has this mission is very important to me. Similar as the cacao, that you can buy it from wholesale that comes from Congo or whatever, with child abuse and child labor and whatever, or I'm teamed up with someone who is like going to Guatemala, going to that farm, help with harvesting and buy it directly from that farm. So we have a podcast around the story behind these products, because I think if we want to be totally independent of people that only want to make money out of it, then we need to give these people the podium or and help them out and collaborate with them. So the main concern is that now you see these companies, and there are a few from Canada that once were like milking out the whole cannabis industry and now are like focusing as predators on the psychedelic field. I'm a little bit concerned about that, although I also know that these plant medicine and the earth medicine have their hidden own agenda. So they have an intelligence and they have something to tell us. So I trust them also that it will filter itself out. People on psychedelic field resonate on a certain frequency, and like aggressive marketing techniques and whatever, it works in the beginning for people that are new and think, hey, I see an advertisement on Instagram. I click on it because I read about microdosing, and then I buy something, and then I noticed that I paid 3 times, 4 times too much for that after that. So it filters itself out. But I at the beginning, back in 2022, I was a little bit concerned, because, and why I'm concerned is that we are dealing with very vulnerable, sometimes desperate people that are looking for alternatives for SSRI, for whatever, having burnout, are on the waiting list of the regular health system to get a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever. So and if you're not telling a realistic view on what microdosing is, and that's why what I always had. I always done, like, okay, I wanted to have a realistic viewpoint on what microdosing is, and I didn't want to manipulate people who are very vulnerable. Like, it's unfair to promise something around microdosing, because they are the main character in the story, and microdosing can be a really good support and a really good tool. But if you're not focusing on the main character, and like Jennifer says, like you're meeting them at where they are at that point, then it can be it can be harmful. Microdosing and psychedelics in general are very potential healing, powerful healing medicine, but you have to approach it with care. And that was one of my hidden agendas with microdosing platforms. Like, people learn to work and with psychedelics in a very safe and in a very safe way, similar as riding a bike with these side wheels. So like you learned how to work with these plant medicine and earth medicine, and I'm rambling on, but that is
we're with you.
I can tell more about. Okay, yeah. So that is, I think, very important, and hopefully the companies that have another intention, or not the most pure intention, will filter itself out and lose ground or whatever. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that resonates big with all of us. Thank you. Yeah. Anna, my next question is around the medicines themselves. So we work exclusively with psilocybin mushrooms in our community, but now many people who are 3, 4, 5 years into working with psilocybin get very curious about working with other medicines and other medicines that you can microdose. So I'd love for you to share a bit on other medicines that you can microdose, and also when someone comes to you and goes, well, I want to microdose, I'm curious, I'm drawn to it, which medicine is the medicine for me? How can you help them decide which medicine to start with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, everyone knows about psilocybin mushrooms to microdose with. And I find them to be like grounding and introspective and emotionally connective. So they're amazing for anyone that's looking for emotional healing or deeper connection with their inner world. But then one can microdose with LSD, for example, right? And LSD has more this expansive, cognitive, energizing quality to it, more cerebral, I would say. And so I found it to be amazing when I wanted to enter a flow state or be more clear and more focused on my work, or when I was looking for mental clarity or working on creative projects. So someone looking for that could benefit from it. Then the other substance that is quite amazing is mescaline, that you can extract from either San Pedro or peyote. And this is, I found it to be a combination between LSD and mushrooms, but it's heart opening, right? Like it's also cerebral, also in your body, but it's more in the heart space, and it's very gentle and expansive. And I think that would be an amazing ally for someone that's looking to open their heart, to explore relationships or cultivate like connection and compassion and gratitude. So these are three that work on the serotonin receptors. But then you have Amanita muscaria, right? And this is a different type of mushroom. It's the one that has the white dots. Everyone knows about it. And this one actually has a different psychoactive substance, not psilocybin, but I think it's called muscimol. And then it actually activates the GABA receptors. And this is more for those that have, problems with sleep or anxiety. It's very calming, very grounding, very restorative. And the other one that I have not actually tried is the capivine, which is ayahuasca without the DMT. And I've heard from my friends that it's also very grounding and detoxifying. So it helps with like introspection and, connecting with your inner truth. But that's just something that I've heard of. And then personally, I've also microdosed DMT, which is also an expansive, amazing experience, only twice. So I don't have like a lot to say about it, but yeah, I think when choosing one substance over the other, you have to just think about like, okay, what's my intention? What do I want to get out of this? Kind of knowing some of these characteristics, but also understanding that each plant will work differently with you. Each psychedelic will interact differently with you. I've known people microdosing with LSD that felt, connected with themselves, not necessarily so cerebral. So it's also, you have to take the person into account, like how it interacts with you. And then I think the other thing to consider is like where you are at, like where you are in the world, and accessibility, right? Some substances are easier to source in some parts of the world than others. So taking all those into account, you can make a decision for what you want to microdose with.
Thank you. That's super helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Jennifer, I wanted to next ask you for your take on protocols. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with protocols at this point, because we're so conditioned to be in this prescriptive mindset, right? I take this pill, it's going to do this thing to me. And so in some ways, like assigning a protocol, it's continuing that mindset of perpetuating it. So, but on the other hand, I find protocols so helpful in creating that foundational, fundamental relationship and a framework to. Otherwise, we, and I totally resonate with this, tend to be all over the place, right? And so giving our practice this structure and the system at the beginning can be deeply grounding and relax our nervous system as we delve into practice. So I would love to hear your take on protocols, the point of having a protocol, and what are a few of the protocols that you recommend for people?
Yeah. I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I think it's a really important conversation. It is, for those of us in this field, we do hear it regularly. How do I take this? How often do I take it? When do I need to take it on a certain schedule? Why can't I take it every day? Is there something wrong with taking it every day? All these questions that have brought us to protocols. Protocols are also known as a dosing schedule, like when and how often to take your microdose. And so it's an important conversation to have. And often where I start is just by saying first that actually you don't have to have a protocol. However, our minds are conditioned to, this pharmaceutical model where we're used to taking a certain amount on a certain schedule, right? And so protocols, I feel like, are a great and really supportive bridge into microdosing. Especially if you're brand new to microdosing, or if you're coming back to it after a long break and you sort of need a restart. It's like any structure of any kind, I find in most areas of life are useful to give us a place to land comfortably and confidently upon. And with microdosing, the protocol allows us to then, focus. We're like, okay, I have this schedule. Now I can really focus on the medicine and my life and the impact that this allyship, this combination, this experience is having, right? And so when I think of protocols, I think of 5 basic ones. First, I think of the foundational one that most people know in this field, the Fadiman protocol, right? It's sort of the first one, right? It's 1 day on, 2 days off. Like you take the dose on 1 day and then you don't for 2 days. And that one was established mostly out of a lot of surveying of people microdosing, and that has more to do with how long the average person felt that they had some lasting benefit from the medicine. So it was like, it's more about getting the most out of each dose, right? And not and taking the minimal amount and getting the most benefit from it. All right. So 1 day on, 2 days off, the Fadiman protocol. Then I think of the Microdosing Institute's protocol, which is every other day, 1 day on, 1 day off. And this one has more to do with the minimum amount of time to not build up tolerance. So it's about 24 hours of not dosing to clear, at a minimum, to clear the receptors for any buildup of tolerance. And this one is a little easier on the schedule too. Like I have found, and a lot of people have found, 1 day on and then 2 days off. And after weeks of doing this, there's a point at which if you're not like carefully putting it in your calendar, you're kind of like, okay, wait, which day am I on? So either, with the Microdosing Institute protocol, you're either dosing or you're not dosing on any given day. So it's easier. It's also been found that the Microdosing Institute's protocol has been particularly useful for certain things like ADHD. Just having the medicine a little more often provides this support all the way through ongoingly. And so it's really nice. Really good for calibration too, initially when you're working to find that ideal dose or dose range for yourself, and want to get there pretty, carefully, but pretty quickly, move right along to find that dose. So then I think of the Stamets protocol, named for famous mycologist Paul Stamets, and his is a little more intensive. And so some people really do like this. I find it to be a lot personally, but some people really crave this. And it's sort of like, anywhere from like 3 or 4 days on to 2 or 3 to 4 days off. And so that's more of a personal preference. And some people kind of lean into that. I find especially early on, sometimes that it's like the body is almost in that first month of microdosing, maybe almost craving a little more or finding that stability, and balance within itself, and maybe a little more initially feels, or more days in a row feels really good. And so then we kind of shift. I think of the next one, we shift a little bit into, I call it the nightcap, or it's known as the nightcap protocol. And that one's a shift in timing, because most people take their microdose in the morning, because a lot of people find the microdose to be very stimulating or activating. And so, almost like in place of a little caffeine in the morning, you take your microdose and you're sort of activated and clarified and inspired for the day. But for some people, taking a little microdose in the second half of the day, in the evening or right before bed, and there's a few times right there. So it takes a little trying it out for yourself, is actually really beneficial. And this can be a little more situationally dependent as well. For example, I was coaching someone through her first microdosing experience a few years ago, and she suffered from night terrors. And they would be so awful that then when she'd wake up in the morning, she'd be sleep deprived and exhausted, and just it took a long time to get going, and she was really dragging herself through her morning. And then that would lead to a lot of caffeine intake, and it was kind of this vicious cycle. And she switched to a nightcap protocol, which greatly eased her night terrors, let her have a good night's sleep, and then she was refreshed in the morning. So it's a personal preference. I think it's one when you've already maybe used one of those first protocols and established a microdosing experience. If you would like to try a nightcap to see if that's a fit for you, or you have something, a goal in mind, an intention that has to do with your sleep that you're interested in experimenting with, a nightcap protocol could be really valuable to try out. And then finally, the intuitive protocol. And I put that in. Some people wouldn't even call that a protocol, but I think it's important to add that as an option. And I think it's where a lot of us finally get to with experience in microdosing. And sort of comes full circle to what I said in the very beginning of, like, you don't actually need a protocol. This is more of a bridge into really feeling into your own experience. And that's where the intuitive protocol comes in. And that's really microdosing, given the knowledge of building up, the possibility of building up tolerance if you take it every day ongoingly, and the experience, your own experience in your own body. And finally, a lot of people get to this place of like really tuning in deeply and dosing when feels best for them. And I've seen a lot of variety here. Some people, I've had clients say, well, I really want that extra support on the weekends, and they're just dosing on the weekends. And then me in the Pacific Northwest here in the wintertime, daylight hours are really short, and a lot of people have a wide variety of mood related complaints related to lack of light. And I know I've had clients who dose just through the wintertime. So like that could be, intuitive. I know women who dose around their cycles, it could be so many things, or it could just be when you tune in and feel like, okay, the next few days are when I want to dose, and then maybe weeks off after that. So that's what I think of in protocols.
So beautifully said.
Add something?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful said, Jennifer. I do want to emphasize, if you try the nightcap protocol, then it's mainly only with psilocybin and not with LSD. Most people get a little bit tired of tiredness or nausea, sleepiness from psilocybin. So that is how naturally the nightcap protocol was sort of like seeing daylight. Like, we suggested like maybe take it in the evening if you're tired from it, and then it slowly, it was a natural process that people took it. And but yeah, with LSD, because it also binds to the dopamine receptors, you probably end up watching your ceiling the whole night. So yeah. Ceiling surface, we call that. And and of course with the intuitive protocol, a lot of people who have followed one of the protocols are into the intuitive protocol, and the only rule is that you don't take it every day, and of course that you have learned during your microdosing journey to trust your intuition, because some people still have to learn, like, what are my needs, concerns, cravings, whatever, impulsive, and the difference between that and your intuition. As long as you feel that your intuition is something that you can rely on and trust, then the intuitive protocol is really a great way to microdose, actually. And all these protocols are just guidelines. It's not a must. If I have to go to a funeral tomorrow and it's my microdosing day and I don't feel like it, please don't take it. Follow your intuition on that. Like, you don't want to amplify your grief when going to a funeral with a microdose. So it's sort of common sense. I think it's really important to say that. That is, and about the Microdosing Institute program, that's also something that naturally emerged out of, like, we were coaching people, and some people, especially with ADHD, burnout, depression, they didn't want to do the Fadiman protocol sometimes because they were waiting on the third day to take it another. And Jim Fadiman designed this protocol as a research protocol. He knew that microdosing has a 2 days effect. There's a mini afterglow, similar as a high dosage. You have like 2 to 3 weeks, you have an afterglow. And microdosing has a mini afterglow. And then the normal day, the third day, was designed to look back on your microdosing day to find out what's the difference between a microdosing day and a normal day. So, and that is how it was developed. And then, some people, they don't want to research their thing. They just want to feel better. So that's why we came up with the Microdosing Institute protocol. And it was sort of in collaboration with Jim Fadiman that we saw, hey, could this have, and it's also, what's also nice is if you do that for 1 month, you take exactly the same amount of microdoses as the Stamets protocol. I sometimes say, hey, if the Stamets protocol is too much for you, like, I'm not into taking microdose every day for 4 days in a row, but the every other day protocol is really for me is really beneficial. So if you are a microdose coach or learn to be a facilitator, then it's good to sort of experiment without experiment too much. But after 2 weeks, and that's why in our 6-week program, we start off with the every other day protocol and then move forward with the Fadiman protocol. But then, afterwards you can feel what resonates best with your energy, but mostly resonates with your personal situation and your routine with your work. And that is also protocol, the fixed protocol that you find 2 or 3 fixed days in a week to microdose with. So to round it up, it's not a must. There are guidelines, and to avoid tolerance, don't take it every day. Also because there hasn't been a study about the long-term effect. So it's also important to take a break after 2 months. Maximum 10 weeks, to take a break for at least 2 weeks. I've talked to Keenan Thomas, who is a researcher, and he said these 5-HTB receptors in the heart, and there's a discussion on, can you get sort of issues with the heart? And if you these receptors are not only for bombarding with microdoses, it also has another function. So if you take a break, then they reset, and then it's totally fine and safe. And that's what we always promoted, to have this protocol and take a break at least for 2 to 4 weeks after a 2-month cycle.
Beautiful. Both of you. Anna, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah. So I took a slightly different approach, kind of combining consistent scheduling with intuitive. So when I started microdosing 5 years ago, I was like a little scientist, taking it for my creativity and wanting to see how it worked on me. So I actually had I established that I will take it one day on and 1 day off, so every other day. And then for 30 days, I tracked that experience, and I tracked it in the journal that later became Auden. And I systematically tracked how it made me feel, how it impacted my mood, my social interactions, my verbal fluency, my emotional, feelings, my mental clarity. And I tracked that. And then looking back every week, I would spot patterns and things that were in my blind spots. So I was like a little scientist trying to see where am I not seeing things that I should be seeing and where can I expand. And then took that and integrated that into, my life. And then I moved on to microdosing more intuitively, because I tested LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, and I noticed that with LSD I was more focused on work and not wanting to interact with anyone. While being on mushrooms, I was more open and connected to others. And then learning that about myself, I would optimize for certain situations with microdosing. So going to social settings, I would microdose with psilocybin mushrooms, right? And be more open and more social and all that. So it kind of moved from being very consistent and very tracking everything to understanding how it impacts me, and then being more intuitive.
Beautiful. So rich, all of you. Yeah. One of the ways I often liken it to people to a meditation practice. When you're first starting to meditate, if you meditate every day at the same time for the same amount of time for, say, 90 days, you get to the point where you don't have to meditate. Meditation just becomes part of your life. And it's easier to drop back into it. So that to me is how microdosing is. Once you get connected to the medicine, you don't need to be so rigid about the structure of the thing. You tap into your intuition and you just know. So yeah, beautifully said. I want to, just because we have such a rare opportunity with the four of us who have supported literally thousands and thousands of people in microdosing practice, I wanted each of you to weigh in on, for both individuals microdosing as well as facilitators to be, what are the common things that help people be really successful in their microdosing practice, as well as what are the things that people really screw up and get in their own way with microdosing practice?
The first thing that comes to mind is, I think I said it earlier with the karate example, that if you have this mindset that microdosing is just another medication you take in and you kind of take your hands off expecting it to do all the work for you, that's not going to happen. So those that understand that this is like a dance that happens in two, like it takes two to tango, it takes two to microdose, basically. It's an important mindset to have. So yeah, just being active and proactive in the process. That's the one thing. I think the second thing is staying curious and open-minded, because microdosing will take you out of your comfort zone and it will push you to the edges and it will expand you. And if you are afraid to step outside of that and you're not curious about what's showing up and asking questions about why is this coming up for me, then you are going to move away from it, right? And say, this is not for me. So approaching it like, a scientist, it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. I didn't actually expect microdosing to show me this. Why is it all of a sudden something that's in my awareness? So yeah, being curious and open-minded, and then giving it a fair chance. And I think this is, again, linked to being taken outside of your comfort zone. I've seen people that try it once or two times and that they're like, feel so uncomfortable, or things are so intense that will say, no, this is not for me. This is not what and maybe they're not ready for it, but also I think it's important to give it a fair chance. And this is where, having a guide or a coach or someone that can, or a community where you can share and so you're not alone in this, makes a huge difference, because you get to understand, okay, it's not as scary as it feels, and I'm not the only one experiencing this, and there are other people that can offer like me a new perspective or some tools, and I can navigate this. That's the third thing. And I think the last thing would be self-reflection. And that comes in a practice of journaling or tracking your experience or meditation or contemplation. But like looking back on your experience and seeing, okay, well, these patterns have shown up. Why is this? How can I integrate these new insights into my life moving forward? Because otherwise it's just a nice experience. I know so many people in the psychedelic community in Vancouver where they have this amazing insights in macro journeys, right? But nothing changes in their lives, right? And it's because it's just another trip to the hyperspace without coming back with anything. So yeah, this would be the last thing I think that I feel it's very important and can lead to those changes and expansion that everyone is looking for, right?
Beautifully said. Yeah. Jennifer, Hein, did you want to add anything? Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to add. I second everything Anna said. She really summed that up very completely. And I would add to that, I particularly love bringing ritual and encouraging ritual. I think there's, when we're bringing in and adding a new process to our life, and we talk about building habits and having a schedule, and it can feel like one more thing to do, and it can feel kind of hard and mundane, and like life is already there's so much we're being tasked with in life right now, and people come to it hoping for something new and maybe a little bit of magic, some sparkle of something greater than ourselves. And bringing ritual in and talking about that can support that building of a schedule and a routine and a habit. But it's like it adds a little sparkle, and ritual can be anything. I mean, brushing our teeth every day is a ritual, but also like sitting in an altar and praying is a ritual. So it can be whatever you want, but I love encouraging that as part of the practice, and giving examples of that, because it sort of adds this magical, greater than us aspect, which taps into another part of our mind and our body and calls us into the practice, which I love in a beautiful, maybe even playful way. And then around what Anna was saying about giving this a fair chance, there's the science has been pointing some time to there's this benefit of a minimum amount of time of 6 weeks. And this is why there's a 6-week program at the Microdosing Institute. And yes, a lot of us have heard about people just giving it a couple of doses or a week or so and not noticing anything and giving up. I have found after leading the facilitating a 6-week course for the Microdosing Institute for a couple years now, as well as taking a lot of people through it myself and my own coaching practice, there's this arc of experience that 6 weeks at a minimum covers, and it's like the medicine builds throughout that experience, and you can and some people feel something immediately, but it's not unusual for something to sort of deepen and occur in that 3 to 5 week zone, and then maybe even a little beyond, and it's like, I can't emphasize enough to just hang in there. Yeah, it's a subtle process, and that's also what makes it so beautiful. I could go on and on about that, and like what it, like the magic of showing up to something in our life, on a day-to-day, regular basis, and how that can be so subtle but so powerful if we just hang in there with it. So that's what I wanted to add.
Love it. Yep, absolutely. Hein, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, it's all about when you start microdosing. It's about your mindset, and that is why doing your research is really important. You have to know that microdosing works with you and not for you. That is, I think, a very important one. And microdosing is not taking it once or twice and then say and make the conclusion like it doesn't work for me. No, it doesn't work for you. It points out the things that you need to work on yourself. Like with a high dose journey, everybody knows it. Like it increases suggestibility and it opens the window of opportunity for a moment, and then you need to do something with it, and then that's why integration is so important. And the beauty of microdosing, that's really a great integration tool for these high dose journeys. I really believe also in the power of this combination. Like in preparation, you are microdosing for a high dose journey, and maybe then as an integration tool. And these insights with high dose journeys, they come like a hurricane. It's like, oh, what do I do with it? And then with microdosing, these insights, they come sort of as a gentle breeze, and you can, like, you're doing it during your daily routine, and that really helps me to integrate these chaotic insights that I gained from high dose journeys. And yeah, so your mindset is really important. It's a non-specific mental amplifier. And what does it mean? That amplifies what's in you, and that sometimes can be challenging. So you need to be sort of also aware of some patterns that you are not aware of, or like Anna said, like your blind spots that you suddenly come aware of, or in my case, in my relationships, like we have patterns that I don't like, but because you are with the significant other, you can change it right away. So that can also frustrate a little bit. So the mindset of being non-judgmental is very important. Be curious, like exploration, like a child that wants to explore. And then if you don't judge yourself in the too large, then, and with a little bit of self-love, then you really get the most out of it, because then, yeah, you can be curious on what you can learn. And yeah, so that's, and if you want, if you are a facilitator to be, and that's also what we teach in the programs, is sometimes you get a client and they are in the victim role and they are not yet there. So then you can say, hey, yeah, start microdosing, but sometimes it's also good to say no and say, hey, let's first take you to the phase of your process where microdosing can really be of support. And then, because then you also placed microdosing not as that, like the main factor, but yeah, like seeing it in a realistic perspective. And of course, most important, that don't jump to conclusion after a few times of microdosing. It's really like if you have a headache, you take paracetamol as a baseline. It has to be in your system for a while, and then it helps sort of. And with microdosing, after 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, then you slowly start to, if you have a positive experience, you start to have sort of a micro shift in your perspective. And that for some people can be huge and very clear. But for some people, it's very subtle. And like, it could also be like, hey, I have a good day of sleep. I don't know. It's so dependent on all these different factors. And in the end, it doesn't matter. Like the book of Ayelet Waldman said, like a really good day. It's in the end, it's about like, do I have a really good day? And like, yeah, I when I turned 45 and then when microdosing, and I suddenly had the procrastination was sort of gone. So I know my triggers when I have the excuse not to sport or whatever. So I thought, oh yeah, if I take my shoes on in the morning, then I go running, because in the morning I don't have these excuses. So I also like I stalked myself, sort of like I was curious on okay, I'm aware of these excuses and those kind of things, but yeah. And then I started to do guitar lessons after 25 years of saying I want to play the guitar. And then I was realizing, am I not in a midlife crisis or whatever, you know? So, and then I thought, what the hell? I don't mind, actually. It works. Sometimes there's a micro shift going on, and yeah, you can be curious on what it brings you, and yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
I love it.
And building a relationship with these plant and earth medicines, really important. It's really important to acknowledge that there's a spirit and an intelligence in these mushrooms, for instance. And if don't see it as a candy. That's why I'm a little bit concerned about all these gummies and whatever, because you forget that it's a mushroom that has been growing for millions of years, and they're longer on earth than we are. And they don't know they are illegal. That's what Fetterman always says. But yeah, then it becomes also a little bit more full. Like, okay, you can be curious what that intelligence has to say to you, and then becomes a funny and a fun journey.
I love it. Thank you, all three of you. So beautiful. In closing, I wanted to get your reflections. You know, high dose journeys, for as long as we've all been alive, gets all the attention. Everybody's all about the high dose work and the ceremonial work, which is profound and extraordinary. But there's so much to microdosing. And I know a lot of people come to me often and they're like, I'm drawn to do this, but should I start with a journey or should I start with microdosing? Which order should I go in? How do I know? And so since we invest a lot of our heart into microdosing practice specifically, I'd love for each of you to share, celebrate microdosing a bit, and like what makes microdosing special and unique unto itself.
Mm-hmm. I'd be willing to start. Since so many people are waking up to microdosing and coming to it really with something therapeutic in mind. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the macrodose journey, and it can be a lot. It can be too much when someone is suffering from a mood instability or some other ailment. A macro can overwhelm the system. And just be too much to process. And I just think there's something so beautiful about the healing path being one of, one day at a time, and subtly meeting whatever ally we are, as well as meeting ourselves along the way. Healing doesn't happen typically completely in 3 to 6 hours, right? That would be amazing, right? And I think society continues to look for that answer. Just one day, one pill, one thing, one answer, quick, and I'm healed, right? And it's just not the case. And I used to complain about that when I was on my own healing path, but I have come with microdosing to find that it's really this beautiful unfolding, opening, continuing to come home to oneself and discovery, which can happen at any point in our lives. It's never too late. And so I really love that about microdosing. And since this is a living medicine, a portal being, I call it an ally. We've used all these words. It's like our nervous system gets to, and our whole being gets to meet them, and gets to like dance and get to know that medicine again and again and again and again on a regular basis with microdosing while we're going about our life. We don't have to set aside a whole day and maybe the next day or two to recover all that like we often do from a macro. So that's my celebration.
Thank you.
My celebration is that being someone that has always traveled and experienced new things, just to kind of experience the world and feel like I'm not missing out on what this life is. I found so much more joy in slowing down and being present. And I think this is exactly how microdosing is. It's just this, it's almost like basking in the nothingness of the present moment that also has all the possibilities in it. And it almost like opens a portal where you can access more creative energy, more life inside of you. And microdosing just allows you to have that intimate conversation with yourself. It's like the conversations you only have, with a lover when you kind of whisper, face to face at night, lying down in bed, kind of thing. That's how I see microdosing. It's very intimate, very, very joyful, very present, very slowed down and rich at the same time.
Oh, lovely. Hein, how about you?
Yeah, the beauty of microdosing is that people in the end, like after a successful microdosing journey, in the end report similar or the same things as people that take a high dose journey. Like they feel more connected, they feel more grounded, they feel more in the present moment. So in the end, and because high dose journeys are not for everybody, and it involves a few more risks, and it's more So I think microdosing is really a great, is a safe way of still getting these benefits or having these positive effects, and because it's not for everybody, and like studies also show that it's similar. And with these studies, we now do the high dose journey studies, and they're having a challenge of getting approvals and saying it's safe. So I think microdosing can also like be playing a role. Like, hey, if like mini dosing or microdosing, because we are talking about microdosing and high dose journeys, but there's a lot of things in between that are yet to be discovered. And I explored that in the 33 years I've been taking psychedelics on different settings, and sometimes extreme settings. Like, okay, what can certain amounts do? But that is a whole different topic, let's say. But let's stick to microdosing and the celebration of that. I think it's a beautiful tool to end the stigma. I'm really into that, because people are not afraid of a microdose. They are interested. They see it as a mental food supplement or mental vitamin or whatever. So what I notice is that people are much more open to discuss it and think, because it's time for the use of psychedelics, that people see it with an open, a new perspective, with the knowledge of now, with the studies that has been done, and all the Indian stories that in the 60s and the 70s to scare people. And that's why How to Change Your Mind from Michael Pollan helped so much to end this stigma more and more. And microdosing, and that was my hidden agenda. Saw it as a Trojan horse to slowly put it into society, and that people can talk about it, and everybody thinks something about it and has an opinion, and that's good. Sometimes that people are against it, but that are the same people that drink alcohol every weekend, and there are even people drink coffee every day, which is also a psychoactive substance. It's also, and of course, I don't have to explain that to you because we are in the field and in sort of in the bubble. But yeah, it's good that people have an opinion about it, and microdosing can all like catalyze these things. So that is what I really like about microdosing.
Thank you, all of you. So beautiful. To share a little bit about your training program, the facilitator training program, I recently had the experience of teaching with your current cohort of the training program, and it was so delightful. And I loved how diverse the students were. They were all over the world. They had such unique backgrounds, and it just so affirming of each of us who are doing this work bring the work to the world in our own unique way, based and through our own background. So I'd love to just give you space to talk a little bit about the training upcoming, and kind of for people out there who are listening and go, oh, well, I'm not a therapist. Do I need to do that first? Or is this something I can do? Who is it for?
Mm-hmm. It's for anyone interested in working in this field and specifically supporting others with microdosing. You do not need a background, therapeutic background already. Anyone can do this, and it can be woven into a healing practice or your career that you're already engaged in, if you would like to weave it into that. So it blends really well if you're wanting to expand upon what you're already doing. And our program is, I find that it's mature and it's deep and it's grounded in both the technology of microdosing as well as the indigenous, as well as, really bringing our full selves to this future practice. This is why what you just expressed, Casey, about how you noticed the students were really applying it to their life and really bringing their own questions from their life. This is something we've cultivated consciously within the program, as well as really hands-on. It takes something to get folks from possibly no experience to launching their practice within 8 months. And so part of that is that we have them actually practicing facilitating during the program with each other and then with someone from the public in a very safe and guided way. But that builds confidence. And so it's a lot in 8 months, and it's so well held, and we're so loving and gentle and supportive with everyone and everyone with each other, so that you're launching, so that you're really launching into a legitimate career, whatever that looks like after.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the way I see it is that we are lighting up the beacons of hope. Like every single of the students, they are beacons of hope that can use also microdosing, bringing it back into their communities, and expanding and like bringing more light, bringing more hope, bringing more joy, more creativity, more healing, more transformation there. And it goes back to what Jennifer said, that we are asking of our students to bring their story of transformation with microdosing. And so throughout the program, we'll have them microdose themselves, experience it if they haven't. So we go through this like hero journey of transformation where they feel into, okay, what was the thing that microdosing helped me see in my life? What did I heal? And how can I bring more of that? And then on top of that, we layer the zone of genius and the zone of expertise, meaning that all of these people have studies and skills and knowledge from all these other maybe jobs or professions that they've had before, that they are either trying to integrate with microdosing or move away from, but they have those skills. So that's their zone of excellence, right? That they can bring into this. So it kind of alchemizes with their transformational story. And then on top of that, you have the zone of genius, which is like, what are you so good at that it feels like second nature to you? And we bring awareness to that, because a lot of people, they feel like, oh, well, I'm so good at this, everyone is good at this, right? But showing them that this is unique to them, it gives them the confidence to show more of themselves. And then when they build that, like throughout the whole program, I feel like they don't just build the knowledge, but they build the confidence to go back to their tiny worlds and amplify more of themselves to, like I said, bring the hope, bring the healing, bring the creativity. So it's all done with care, with joy, and with love. And I mean, I love all of them. So yeah.
That comes through. Absolutely. Hein, do you have any close? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I like about the program is that we really pay attention to the ancestral wisdom and the like the ancient Jews and the history of psilocybin in this case, and how it was used. Because I always like the story that Jim Fadiman told me, and he was very proud that he sort of discovered microdosing, and then an anthropologist tipped on his shoulders, let's say, isn't it a little bit arrogant that you think that these indigenous tribes didn't take tiny amounts, but they didn't call it microdosing, but they used it, of course, in tiny amounts. So maybe thousands of years, we don't know. There is some evidence and how they used it, and that's what we also implement in that, and that we also respect our ancestors. I think that is also a really important thing in the program itself. And yesterday I learned with your masterclass, I learned something really valuable. And that was that when I became a microdose coach and I became an educator, I was a crane driver in the harbor. I was doing discharging and loading containers. And so I've been doing that for 28 years. And then I was like, okay, this is totally new and I have to learn something else. And it's a totally different field. And then you said yesterday, like, you don't have to do something like that is a total shift, because then you can become a coach in your own field. And that was sort of eye-opening to me. It was like, because when I finally told that I was doing this microdosing thing at my work, then people became interested, and I was like, it was still a taboo. And then I told them, and then it's like, oh, I have something to ask you, and I have this issue and that. And then I noticed, like, okay, you can be in IT, you can be whatever, and then you can implement that into the field that you're already in. So you don't have to step out and do something completely different. You can integrate it in your own field. And that was a beautiful lesson that you told me on Sunday. That I think I intuitively did that, but I wasn't aware of it, sort of. And that's something that we also teach people in our program.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The mushrooms taught me that.
Yeah.
And when we look at things through the lens of nature, it's the mushrooms at work, right? They want us to spread the spore, and in all across all walks of life, all over the world. And so we see it when we take it back to our community. Sometimes when people are new to our community, they're worried that they're going to fit in because they are from some of these demographics, or, they're police officer, or they're in government, or they're a surgeon, right? And they're like, I don't know if my kind is allowed in. And then they come in and they're like, oh, there's many more of me here. We're everywhere. We're everywhere now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Well, so much gratitude for all three of you. Thank you for your passion and dedication to this work. It's so, so beautiful to witness. And I'm really excited to continue collaborating and supporting you all in the upcoming year. And when is your next training cohort beginning for listeners?
Our next cohort will start mid-February 2025.
Beautiful. Right around the corner.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And on the next 6-week program, if you want to be guided through your microdosing journey, that starts at the beginning of January. But please reach out to us. You can find us on the website or Instagram or whatever. So Microdosing Institute. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'll drop all of your links, how to find you individually and as Microdosing Institute in the show notes as well. So thank you all so much for being here. And
thank you, Casey.
All of you for listening. Hope to see you back in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Microdosing for Healing podcast. Are you ready to take the next step? Please visit us at microdosingforhealing.com to access our free Microdosing 101 workshop. In it, you'll learn more about our diverse community, our supportive group programs, and discover if earth medicine practice might be right for you. See you in the next episode.